Good morning from beautiful Lander, Wyoming. I'm going to paint this scene here behind me. Try to do a 9x12 here quick, and I'll show some shots in between. Unfortunately, my last painting session ended abruptly, and I forgot to clean my palette. So when you use Galca gel, well, some of this is still kind of sticky, but when you use some of these dryers that speed up the drying, then you don't have much time, about a day before it starts to set up. So I'll have to use some rubbing alcohol and get this clean. But anyway, that's what happens when you're on the road. That's my scene again. Decided to go with a higher horizon line on this piece. Less about sky. I really like this field. And then of course there's a lot of wildflowers out there. Hard to see in the video, but a lot of yellow little flowers in there. So I'm going with the higher horizon line here. I've toned it with a blue-gray because it is morning and the air out here is really nice and cool. So I just felt that was maybe the best choice of an underpainting rather than making everything kind of a warmer tone, which would maybe make this whole thing feel a little bit later in the day. I like these cool morning tones. So I've pre-mixed some colors here. Got my field, my sky, my mountains, my trees, and the dark accent in the trees there. I'm trying to keep everything a little higher key. I've noticed in my last couple of paintings I'm starting a little bit darker, about a half key or half step darker in my key than I really wanted. So mixing these, pre-mixing does two things. It gives me piles of paint to work with so I can paint more quickly and intuitively rather than having to stop to remix so much. And it also allows me to key the different major shapes relative to one another. So my lightest light here, then how much darker do my mountains get, but those need to be light enough so the trees stand up against those, and those need to be dark enough so this field in the foreground is nice and bright. Anyway, that's my thought process there. I'm blocking in that tree bank there, trying to get the general shape. Getting a little glare behind me. There's a lake here that's real pretty, but that bright reflection on my panel is making it a little bit hard for me to judge my values, which is okay though, because I mixed them, pre-did it down here. I know what I have and what I want. So I'm going to, just with this general one color here, get in some of the shapes of the trees. That kind of profile. And then I can, mess with the colors here. In a little bit. And I'm not trying to cover every little bit of canvas here. Some of that showing through will make it pretty unique. So I map those mountains in. Now I'm going to get a little bit of that sky. I'm going to shape the mountains with this sky color here. Try to get my drawing pretty accurate. But notice how that changes the values here as well. Here are the relationship of the values. So it's really important that I get this sky in. And all these major shapes really blocked in here so I can judge the relationships of values. I love this. I'm going to leave a spot right here because there's some mountains in snow that are gorgeous. I'm just working on these clouds. If I look out there, we got undersides of some of these that are in shadow, kind of dark. And just getting a range of values in the sky. Some of those color temperature shifts in the clouds then. And then I'll finish with some of the lights on there. And then just kind of verify that I like the design. The clouds, they keep moving. So you gotta, you've gotta always be just checking to see it's the design that you want. Get ideas from what's out there, but don't be a slave to it because it changes too quick, especially in the clouds there. I'll soften some edges as well, coming together. Well, I finished my sky. And I don't think I'll have to go back and touch that. But now it's time to go into these greens and the trees and start to add in a little bit of the, those darks in there. I'll pop some in with the palette knife here, planning to really kind of obliterate a lot of that as I go back in. The palette knife's a good tool though for this. You get this randomized kind of mark making that some of those really help in the trees. All right, so I got my trees in. I went back in with some lighter, greens and such, and modeled out the trees. Then I'm just going back in a little bit with my background color for the mountains and carving back into the trees, getting those shapes correct. Just little bits here and there just to get that, that line of trees. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place a barn. One of these buildings, there's a bunch of buildings in there. I'm only going to pick, maybe one or so. There's a barn over there that I kind of like. I'm going to try to place that in here. Be pretty simple. I'm not going to put a bunch of buildings in there. That's not what it's about. But it's a good opportunity to put a little bit of color, a little bit of light. Well, this barn is really a light shape. I'm using basically the same color as the underside of the clouds. I'm gonna have to put this down and focus on my drawing for a minute. All right, I got my drawing pretty well there. This side of the barn is in full light. Try to pop some of that in there. Might actually be done more effectively with a palette knife here. All right, well, offline here, I had to draw all this stuff in here. I couldn't do it on tape at the same time, but instead of this whole mass of buildings that's over there, I've picked out this barn and decided to put that in the painting. See if I can zoom in here a little bit. So, there we go. And with those little shapes, little dots of color and stuff, it adds some interest, but doesn't really take over the painting so much that I lose what it's really about, which is going to be this field. So now that I've got everything working from the top down, I've got a nice, organic edge of grass here and the trees look good. I'll work down here and fill in this field with some of these yellow flowers. I want this field to feel high key. And now I'm just, if I drag this thicker paint on top of what I laid down to begin with, then I start to get, I don't blend too much, and I'm starting to get some differences in color that I want. And this field is kind of full of these little, waves of grass that are catching the light and others that aren't. So without putting a lot of detail into this, I do want to capture that feel. And I'm just looking out there for cues. I'm going to switch up the colors here a little bit in a minute. You know, I see some redder tops out here in the foreground, so let me switch that color up a little bit, and I'll keep just detailing this out without over painting it, hopefully. It's fun painting out here at this lake. There's more people coming in, and across the lake they're training a dog. So now the final stage here is putting on some thick paint. Got a little mama robin up there, barn swallow. All right, back to painting. Rolling the brush like that can give you some unique little marks too. Now for the final step is put in some of these really nice yellow flowers off in the mid-ground. Maybe about here. I'm going to start with a little yellow-green mixture because I see that as the base color. And then just gently go a little brighter and brighter. And I can use some thick paint here, that's fine. Now in for the really yellow stuff. And here's my finished painting. I hope these tips help you. Remember, just go out there and have fun. Anytime we're able to paint from life is time well spent. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you think of the painting. And as always, let me know what your questions are. I'm glad to help. Till next time, take care.